When a couple gets married, their expectation is it will last for a lifetime and they'll live happily ever after. Unfortunately, for many couples, that dream turns into a nightmare. But when the dream does happen, it's worth finding out why. And that's what we'll do tonight. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome to this edition of Living a Godly Marriage. I'm Melvin Greene.
And I'm Voncille Greene. In this episode of Living a Godly Marriage, we talk with a couple whose love story spans more than 50 years, the 50 years they have been married. It is our pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Thomas, also known as Tano, and Mrs. Jackie Davis.
They are our best friends. And Tano was my best man when we got married.
That's right. And their love story spans more than the 50 years they have been married. And so we're going to talk with them about that in this session.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're so glad to be here with you.
Glad you could join us this evening.
So let's get started. So tell us a little bit about how you met. When you first met after 50 years?
I'll tell you what, I'll start, and then I'm sure Jackie will have a lot more to fill in on the blanks. I tend to go the shorter route, and she has a long story. But anyway, we met in 1970 at the University of Maryland, College Park, where I was a junior, going into my junior year, and Jackie was an incoming freshman.
Oh.
And at the time, I had gotten to be very, very serious about my studies and looking forward to completing the junior year, senior year, and graduating. But also the Vietnam War was going on, and I had thought that I might be drafted into the war. So that was something that had been on my mind as well. But anyway, during the first semester of our freshman year, we met, and we actually met because of a good friend of mine who was also a junior, was giving Jackie a ride home because they grew up in the same neighborhood in Baltimore. And another friend was riding with him, and the other friend sort of had eyes on Jackie. I'm not sure. But he would come back, they would go home on the weekends. They were what we called weekend warriors. And so he would go home on the weekend because his girlfriend was at home in Cherry Hill, Baltimore, where they live. And Jackie would catch a ride with him. And the other person, he would also catch a ride because he was from Baltimore as well. So anyway, he would come back after the weekend. And on Monday, we'd be in the dining hall, and he would be talking about, oh, man, this young lady, she's all this and that. And, he was just her up, and we knew that he had interest in her.
Yes.
So as time went on, after a couple of weeks, we were sitting at the dining room in the dining hall, and Jackie comes in, and he says, yeah, there she is. So she comes over and she joins the table because she knows the other two guys. And, so they got to talking and chit-chatting and so forth. And then at the end of the meal, I said, hey, I'll see you all later. I'm going over to the library to study. You couldn't study if you were serious about your work, you couldn't study in the dorm. So I would go to the library. So Jackie, out of the blue, she said, I like to go to the library. Can I go with you? And you might not remember it like that, but that's the way I remember it. She said, I go to the library, as well. So we walked to the library together, and, basically we were studying, together. And that's how it started. And of course, I wasn't expressing any other type of interest And I really didn't have any other type of interest because of my buddy who I knew had interest. But then as a few weeks, went along, she became very attractive to me. I was attracted to her. Number one, I mean, she's very nice looking then and still very attractive. But more than that, the fact that she was serious about her studies as a freshman. And also, she was very family oriented, coming from a large family, being the oldest of 11 siblings. That meant a lot to me to see how much she really was responsible. As the oldest, she was a very responsible person, and that attracted me as well. So, as a few weeks, not many weeks went by, that I actually invited her to our first date. And I'll stop right there because we'll come back and talk about that. But I'll let her fill in the gap.
Well, it sounds like in that library you were checking out more books.
More than the books. Yeah, that happened.
All right. So Jackie, let's hear your side of
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
It's pretty much as Tano says. However, I have never been one to pursue any man. I'm quite sure I did not ask to go if I could join him. I think I mentioned that I planned on going to study as well, because as he mentioned, as a freshman, I technically had 6 credits because I had come to University of Maryland that summer in a program, working with a program called Intensive Education Development. So as he said, I was serious about my studies, being the oldest of 11, because I did assist with my siblings. But I think it was kind of like a mutual invitation, because I had planned to go to study, and I think he said, you can come with me. But anyway, it became a regular routine when we ate and dined. And I had no idea about this other guy, by the way, because I in no way was attracted to him. He was silly. Although he became
a good job of distracting her from whoever that was.
I had no idea. I don't even think he ever told me about that guy. Anyway, we were all friends, and Tano pretty much, like I said, was always a gentleman. That was another thing that stood out. Everybody else was, wearing the T-shirts and, how you dress in college. But Tano always had on this nice dress shirt and nice dress pants. And I like that about him. Being a junior, I'm a freshman. So that was another thing that struck me to him. But also he was so serious. And I think I pretty much felt his strong ethics because I didn't at the time, but I knew he seemed to be more of a gentleman than a lot of people. Because remember, I had been there that summer, so I had met all the football team, the basketball, all the athletes, and he was nothing like them. And he wasn't nothing like the silly little guy that I rode home on the weekends with.
Yeah, we had time to talk, from the library, even though her dorm was close to the library. I would walk into the dorm, after leaving the library, and they would stay and we would chat a little while. So we had plenty of time to talk. And it became quite evident, I was a Christian at the time, and Jackie had not made a profession of faith, but she had a lot of qualities that I would say were Christ-like qualities that attracted me to her. So, as weeks went along, that became, very, very important to her as well, to understand why I was different. And it was because of my, my love for Christ and trying to follow him.
But at the same time, I think it was the navigators that was on campus. And almost simultaneously, as I had met Tano, I was pursued by 2 young ladies who were doing Bible studies, and they tended to disciple me. And I began doing Bible studies with them and actually did make a profession for Christ, because as I grew to know Tano better, he was talking Christianese about not supposed to be unequally yoked. And I thought, who does he think he is? He's a junior. I'm going to say, who does he think he's better than me? So, and he was telling me things about, you're known by the company you keep and all that. And it seemed, oh my goodness, this man, he's just, he was stiff. like almost like a father type. In fact, the girl that he had dated prior to coming to University of Maryland, she actually came to campus with me. So she was a freshman, and she had said that he was like an old man and things like that. But unbeknownst to me, she really still had a little itch for him because I think he took her to her prom. I'm not sure. So she came. I think she really still liked him because freshmen would be glad to be, being dated by an upperclassman. But that didn't bother me because I wasn't. I knew what I was about. I knew that I was there to get my education, and I was focused.
Yeah, and that was important because Tano and I lived in the same dorm, and you're right, Tano. We would go to the library. We would have to study to keep up with the tough courses we were taking. And so you all started courting or dating, and got a question for you. What was your most memorable date that you had?
Yeah, actually, it was the first date, September 1970, and yeah, that was most memorable because it was at that time that I realized that I wasn't one to really get involved in relationships. I didn't have a lot of girlfriends and things like that. I wasn't a player, so as you said, I was serious, and so to have that first date, that just kind of gave me a good indication that this was someone that I really had interest in, although it took me 2 more months for me to realize that I think that the feeling was mutual. What was your most memorable?
Well, tell them what the date was.
Okay, good.
The date was the invitation to, I think it was called Shakespeare 70. It was a play, which to me showed class.
It's culture.
Yeah, culture. I mean, everybody else partying hardy, doing their flip. At that time, they were drinking wine and all that, and LSD going on campus. Because remember, this was
Oh yeah,
70, okay, with the Vietnam War and all that stuff going on. So that really struck me. But remember, that was September. But I think homecoming must have come up in October, and he didn't ask me. So the people who I knew during the summer, the basketball team, the football team, they were inviting me. So I guess he had outgrown, as he said, all that hard party and all. So I don't even know if he went to homecoming, but I went with the whole group.
So what happened is the Thanksgiving break. We went home, separate ways, both back to Baltimore. And when we got back to campus after the Thanksgiving break, she said something to me that made me realize it's a mutual interest. She said, "Why didn't you call me during the break?" Because I didn't. And I didn't have any good reason other than the fact that I wasn't certain that we were at that point that we would be spending that much time together. So, we had left campus, gone back home. But when she asked me, "Well, why didn't you call me during Thanksgiving?" I said, "Oh, okay. There's an interest, and that won't happen again." So in December 11th on campus, 1970, I actually proposed.
oh,
Our
okay.
life, and from December 11th up to this day, we've never been separated other than, we'll get to that a little later, but we've been together. But there's never been anyone else, no other relationships other than the two of us since December 11th, 1970. So when you say, the 50 years plus, yeah, it's been 53 plus years of
I think I forgot to tell you, I think the impetus for him proposing was the Vietnam War was going on, our friends were being drafted, and a lot of numbers. And I think he had a high number, but still college. In fact, one of the guys who used to give me a ride home, his number actually did come up, and I think he had to leave. Yeah, he had to leave. So I guess Tano said, "Well, since I know how I'm feeling about you," we had this long walk across the square and the campus. I think they call it the campus square.
Called the mall.
The mall,
Mel,
from the
remember
library all the way around the whole mall. And he poured out his feelings that if he got drafted, he didn't really want me to wait. So I couldn't understand why, if he felt that much about me, because I knew I was going to finish school anyway. So I figured he had time. And it became evident that I was willing to wait even if he got drafted. But thank the Lord, he did not get drafted. And we were then called the married couples because we were engaged from that time on, from December 11, 1970 until we got married 3.5 years later on February 16th, 1974. In fact, I even graduated a semester early because he couldn't wait any longer.
Now, I won't ask why you couldn't wait. I won't ask that question, but I will ask, when did each of you know absolutely for sure that she was the one, or he was the one for you, she was the one for you, Tano, and he was the one for you, Jackie? When did you know for sure?
Yeah, well, I knew for sure in early December 1970, which was why on December 11th, I made the commitment, to her that she was the one for me and I wanted to be the one for her. And she agreed. And it was, what made it clear was I knew that I really did not want to be separated, from her. And I knew that this was a person that I wanted to spend my life with.
What made it more real for me is that he actually took me home. We met each other's parents and whatnot. And I just felt so drawn to his spirituality, his Christianity, because he took me to meet his pastor. His pastor kind of counseled us, gave us information about something called Basic Youth Conflicts, which actually dealt with young people growing in Christ. It was called Bill Gothard at that time, seminars. And that made me know that this was the type of Christian husband that I would want to be my spiritual leader, and I was willing to be under his leadership.
Yeah, we were both young, and what really helped us along, as Jackie said, we were introduced to resources that really help us to learn what a Christian marriage should be. Right? I mean, before we were married, we learned these things going back to probably 1971. Jackie started, I would take her to church, to my church. And, our pastor was very, very strong. He was a role model for me. He and his wife were a role model. I mean, he was my mentor. And he introduced us to many, many opportunities. And so we were growing together in our Christian relationship, our Christian walk, and even learning how to be Christian parents before we had children, how to be a godly, wife, godly husband, even before we were married. And so we have plenty of opportunity to put those things into practice even before we became married and became parents.
Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
Validated. And what made it even more validated for me, unlike Tano, said he didn't date as much. I actually went to 6 proms in my senior year. I went to all girls school, and a lot of the schools in Baltimore, those guys would come over Eastern looking for what they considered ladies, because Eastern was a college prep school. We were very serious about who we are. We knew where we were. We were college career. And then on campus, when I came that semester early during the summer, the football team and the basketball team kind of seemed like they were kind of drawn to me. You know how they want to check out the freshman class. But I knew when about that I didn't smoke, drink, or do dope. So that was not my thing, even though Tano kept saying, be careful of the company you hang with. So I knew Tano was different. He stood out, and that made it even more realistic. And I was shocked that I would be even willing to settle. Because like I said, I wasn't a player, but I was very popular. And believe it or not, at 18, I always thought that variety was the spice of life. So
Well, Jackie, I want to piggyback on something you said earlier, because since Tano and I were in the same dorm, he was influencing me as well, because I went to the Institute of Basic Life Conflicts, the Bill Gothard seminar, a couple of times, and it was just great having a Christian man around, and he sort of mentored me as well. So I know what you mean by being drawn to that spirit. In fact,
Yeah.
a few years earlier, I guess I was around 10 or even 12. I was in the Boy Scouts, and Tano was a couple years ahead of me. And even then, I kind of looked up to him. I said, and it's just interesting that the Lord had us become reacquainted at the University of Maryland as we stayed in the same dorm. So that was a blessing. So you all got married. Now tell us something about your family.
Well, we were blessed with two daughters. Tano and I, by me being the oldest of 11, Tano actually helped me take care of my brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Even though I was a resident assistant on campus, I think I was making $78 every week, every 2 weeks, but I would save some of that and help my mother with my brothers and sisters. Tano, by him getting a car, remember he was ahead of me, so he was an upperclassman, and I think he had gotten a gift from his father of a car, and he would take me home and take my brothers and sisters and my mother to like different appointments and whatnot. So that really interests me. And when he couldn't do it, believe it or not, his brother who came there, I think 4 years after Tano, because by that time Tano had graduated and he was working on campus while I was still there. And anyway, the maturity of it, just like I said, it just kept building up about what a godly person I had at such a young age. Because remember, we're only 18 and 20 at this point. So I guess we were the old married couple, as people used to call us. So I knew that the Lord had put us together, and like I said, his pastor was nurturing us, and there were other resources. So that really was a blessing. But I was trying to say, you asked me another part of that question.
Yeah, about the children.
Children. Yeah.
About children.
And because we were so busy taking care out, he was helping me take care of my siblings. Even after we got married, the Lord didn't bless us with a child. We got married in 74. Our first child didn't come to 1981. So we had 7 years of loving on each other, but yet helping my mother with my sisters and brothers. And then the Lord blessed us. It took us another 8 years. So in 15 years, we had our two daughters. We were further along, very mature and enriched. And I thank the Lord for both those young daughters who we thank the Lord both of them professed Jesus Christ at age 4.
So let me ask you, do you have any grandchildren? You have wonderful daughters, by the way. We've met them. They are great.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys did a great job raising them. They are wonderful, beautiful daughters.
Yes.
Yeah, we've really been blessed. We feel that a commitment to Christ as a married couple, really the blessing that came as a result of that, have been two daughters that, as Jackie said, they professed Christ at a very early age. And, some would say, well, at age 4, what can they know? Well, looking back at it over time now, they've remained in the Lord, which let us know, it just confirmed that they did know what they were doing, at the age appropriate, but they continued to grow in Christ over the years. And they're now still walking with the Lord. And the older daughter is raising 2 children. So we have 2 grandchildren, a boy and a girl. The boy is 4, going on 5 this year, and the girl just turned 3, Tony and Carissa. And Kara's been married 10 years. And Dora is working. She's single, but she's working in her church and is already showing leadership qualities at a church that they made her responsible for the children's ministry at the church. So, we've been blessed, and, God has promised us, that we're faithful to him, that he's going to be faithful to us. And we're just so thankful for that.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, I've heard you mention Christ, and both of you all are rooted and grounded in him. How has he really made a difference in the success of your marriage?
Well, I would start by saying that we're committed. We're committed to each other, and Christ makes a difference. He's the center of our relationship. And from day one, when we had the talks before marriage, we both committed ourselves to making sure that Christ would be in the center of our relationship and of our marriage. And we have committed ourselves, to the covenant of marriage, which means no matter what happens, we're not going to leave. We're not going anywhere. We're going to have to stay. We have conflict, but we're going to have to work it out because we know we're committed to the covenant. So when we made those vows, to the Lord and to those witnesses, we're not going to renege on that. And the third thing, I call them 3 C's. The third thing, is that we have to really be concerned about each other. So we come first in our relationship. No matter what else happens, outside of us, friends and family, we have to make sure that we're nurturing each other, that there's that commitment to each other, and we have to make sure that we give each other as a priority.
Jackie, how has Christ made a difference for you as a wife?
Being a Christian has made a difference for me because God ordained marriage. Marriage is of God. And I really take serious when he says, what God has put together, let no man put asunder. And as Tano said, we're different, as you know. I'm the outgoing one, Tano's more the laid back one. And there is conflict, but the Lord always comes and he mediates what's going on between us. And that's what I've learned to do. I've learned to know that because the Lord loves us so, he always works things out for our best. And I really, truly believe that even though we may think something is not the right way, when we wait patiently for the Lord, it always turns out to be for our best. Even when we go through the fire, because I have to remember 1 Corinthians 10:13 is my favorite verse, that there's nothing too hard for the Lord, when there's a challenge. But when you wait upon the Lord, he will give us a way to escape that we may be able to bear whatever it is that's our challenge. And that I truly believe that, and it has worked in my life and continues to be working.
Well, I knew long before I met you guys so great people, because Mel told me after he proposed to me that if I had any problems with him, that I could go to Tano and talk with him about anything that was going on that I was concerned about. Yeah. And before I met you guys, I was a little bit nervous about it because you guys had been friends for many years, but it didn't take me long after I met you that I fell in love with you, if you understand what I mean. You got great, and I felt very comfortable. I felt at home with you, and felt like I could go to Tano to talk with him about anything that was concerning me about Mel.
And she has. But I will say in 13 years, how many times? Only once.
And Tano, you may not even remember why. I barely remember why. But
I remember because I was wrong.
Okay.
You have that on the record now. Because I don't remember what it was about exactly.
Right. Well, that's good. You put it away. Yeah. So you don't need to remember it because cast it away.
So I wanted to mention to the couples that are watching that Jackie and Tano are our accountability couple. Yes. So if I'm having a problem with Voncille, which rarely happens,
of course, because I'm nearly perfect. Everybody knows.
I know I can get on the phone and say, Jackie, I need some help here. And just like she did when she called Tano that one time in almost 13 years, that's not bad, especially when I was wrong.
Not that you're never wrong.
It was a learning experience.
Yes, I know.
But anyway, we're coming down to the end of our broadcast, and we're going to have you back for a second one. Yes. But wow, what an example. We just want to congratulate you all. So as we always close, living a godly marriage is the best marriage.